Welcome to FX Options University, recorded live at the International Securities Exchange, the world's largest equity options exchange. Join the industry's top trading professionals as they provide insight and strategies for trading in the currency markets using FX options. FX options are a low-risk alternative to hedging currency moves in any market condition.
So it was starting to shift this momentum off of this high. It created a short pattern by doing that. And it was able to pull back into this congestion from the zone leading into that sort of cup with handle type of pattern, as well as that first target level that served as another congestion zone over here. So you can see how these previous levels of support and resistance can help serve to identify major target levels, but they're really nothing without that shift in pace. You have to consider pace when you are considering support and resistance levels. The stronger a momentum move, such as this breakdown here, the more easy it becomes to hit larger target levels. If the pace on this breakdown had not shifted, where we saw this change in momentum along this high and then the break lower, let's say instead we had a pivot off of high where it held that high on A, pulled back with a sharper momentum move, the chances are, if this was our whole rally here, and here's that support zone we drew on there, the chances are it would actually start to change momentum along that high and correct more through time than it would through price. And it probably would have came into this level right here and held that as the support instead of being able to push all the way back down to this low here. The main reason it was able to do that was because there was this shift in momentum and the momentum picked up as it broke lower. So paying attention to momentum is really one of the main things, if not the main thing, to help you identify what is the potential on a position. We saw the same thing again over here, a shift in momentum at this high. And basically, this entire area in here started to create a repeat of the exact same pattern that took place up here, where the initial move, which was marked A on that first chart, was this move. This move was marked B on that first chart, and this move was marked C on that smaller time frame. And you can see that the same thing started to develop. So when we were going into the end of the month and looking at this, it was giving us the pattern repeated that we saw up here, which indicated that this was most likely to break lower going into the next month. So we had a nice slower move here in the momentum where it was nearly hugging the support level. And what you can see here is that this is a follow-through. Here was that initial move up here, and then here was the repeat of that move here. So it triggered this short strategy here on this time frame. And it was able to break sharply lower, although momentum was not as strong as we saw on that first drop when it had that pattern in the past. It began and followed through a little bit more slowly than it did the move going into this first drop here. So the result was that even though it had decent follow-through, it wasn't the same type of follow-through or the same momentum of follow-through and able to hit the larger target level like we saw in that previous example of the same strategy. Instead, strong break lower, but then the momentum shifted and it sort of crawled lower to lower lows. One of the strategies that I really like to use in establishing target levels is very closely related to pace, but in addition to using support levels such as price support and resistance levels like we saw with the congestion from the earlier examples, you're able to use the moves themselves leading into a strategy and then out of a strategy to help you identify a target level, meaning that you can identify a target level on a position where you might not necessarily even have a clue what previous support or resistance levels are. And this is really helpful, particularly in a security that's moving to a new all-time high. You might not have a good idea of what the additional resistance levels might be because you haven't seen previous highs or previous lows or previous congestion zones hold. So just looking at price resistance and support alone, you don't have a lot to go on. Basically, the concept of a measured move, which I also will refer to as an equal move, is when you have a trend move in place and then some sort of corrective move, whether it's a triangle, a bull flag, a base at highs, or more of a pullback in a triangle or something like that. If you look at the momentum coming out of that corrective move, where it forms a continuation pattern, as long as the momentum coming out of that correction is the same pace as it was heading into that correction move, then if you measure this move here from lows to highs and then add that on to when it starts to break higher, usually it's going to stall right as it hits that equal move target level. If the momentum is slower or more gradual, even if it picks up and shows the same momentum to begin with, but then it forms like a longer correction, which ends up shifting the momentum, then the chances are higher that it's not going to be able to hit that larger target level. So you can have an initial target level based upon this equal or measured move concept, but if the momentum follows through at a more gradual pace once that strategy triggers, then you can go and drop down and look for closer areas of where you might have a resistance level than something that is closer to that equal move level. If you do have something where you have a lot of examples of where you can see previous highs or previous lows or previous congestion zones or something like that, then this can come into play and help as well. Because if you have, say, previous high levels up here, the more areas or zones of resistance you have coming together all at once, the more likely it is that a security is going to be able to hold that resistance level and create a stronger reversal or a stronger correction off of that resistance level. So if you have a slower paced move, and you know that your chances of hitting that larger equal move are not quite as strong as they would have been if the momentum had been stronger coming out of that congestion, then you can look for areas of resistance such as like whole number levels or previous highs that might be under that initial target zone. On the other hand, if the momentum is stronger on the breakout from that correction, then you can often see a move push through that equal move level. So if you were initially looking for, say, a 50-tick move or something like that, based upon an equal move zone, if you saw the momentum push through to a new high coming out of that congestion that was stronger than that previous move, then you might be able to get 60 or 70 ticks as follow-through on the strategy as compared to the 50 ticks of the initial move. Here's one example of this, and this is just looking at the U.S.-Canadian dollar pair. And I pulled this up just because I used it in the previous class. So we're not looking at the options here, but we're looking at the currency pair itself. And you can see there was a strong drop here, part of an overall head and shoulders pattern. Two-wave move higher creates this base, and then it triggers a breakdown. When it comes into that equal move zone, it's also the zone of this previous low. So you have two types of support level coming together, both here all at once. Because the momentum is stronger than average on that break into that target level, though, notice that even though it does reverse and show a strong reversal, the momentum shifts first before it pops sharply higher back into those previous highs.
Thank you for participating in this week's session. Please join us again next week. Get trading ideas, exchange rates, webinars, news, and commentary. Visit www.fxoptions.com. ISE FX options can be easily traded through all options-enabled brokerage accounts. These exchange-listed securities are cash-settled in U.S. dollars and have a European-style exercise.